On the blood-soaked plains of eastern Anatolia, a drama unfolded that would change the course of history. The year was 1071, and the Byzantine Empire, heir to Rome and master of ancient cities, marched eastward with confidence burning in its heart. At its head rode Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes, armored in gold and steel, the symbol of a civilization that had endured for 1,000 years. He commanded a force drawn from every corner of his vast domains: Greeks and Armenians, mercenaries from Frankish lands, Norman knights hungry for glory, and Pecheneg horsemen lurking on the flanks. Behind them stretched the banners of Byzantium, fluttering proudly against the Anatolian sky. They believed they would crush the rising power of the Seljuk Turks, secure the empire's frontiers, and reclaim the splendor of their ancestors. But empires are forged on battlefields, and sometimes they are lost in a single day. The Seljuk leader, Sultan Arslan, faced the Byzantine host with a warrior's cold resolve. His army, smaller but hardened by years of steppe warfare, moved like shadows across the plain. The Seljuks were masters of horse archery, their warriors clad in lamellar and wielding composite bows that could pierce armor at a distance. While the Byzantines relied on the discipline of their heavy infantry and the thunder of their cavalry, the Seljuks fought with the speed and cunning of wolves. They knew the ground, the winds, and the secrets of deception. This was not a clash of mere armies. It was a collision of civilizations, and the fate of Anatolia hung in the balance. On August 26th, the morning dawned with the Byzantine host arrayed in battle formation outside the fortress of Manzikert. Romanos IV believed victory was close at hand. His scouts reported the enemy was scattered, vulnerable. The emperor ordered his vanguard forward, seeking to strike before the Seljuks could regroup. But the enemy melted away, retreating into the hills, drawing the Byzantines deeper into unfamiliar territory. The empire's greatest fighting force was marching into a trap. As the day wore on, the Byzantine army stretched thin, its wings separated by miles of unforgiving terrain. Romanos, fearing an ambush, sent word to his reserve commander, Andronikos Doukas, to advance and support the attack. But Doukas, harboring secret ambitions and nursing old grudges, hesitated. He carried a legacy of betrayal, a shadow that would soon become a dagger in the empire's heart. Suddenly the Seljuks struck. Arrows darkened the sky, raining death upon the Byzantine ranks. Screams echoed across the field as the disciplined lines faltered, shields splintering under relentless assault. The horsemen of Arslan circled like vultures, launching feigned retreats, drawing the Byzantines further into chaos. Romanos, realizing the peril, ordered a retreat, but his words were lost in the maelstrom. Confusion spread, and panic took root. And then, the blow that shattered the empire. A false rumor swept the field that the emperor was dead. Andronikos Doukas seized the moment, ordering his troops to abandon their posts and flee. The Byzantine right wing collapsed, the center buckled, and the proud army became a sea of desperate men, their trust betrayed, their discipline undone. The Seljuks charged, swords flashing in the afternoon sun. The battlefield became a slaughterhouse, where brother fought beside brother, and death claimed the proud and the humble alike. Blood mixed with dust, and the cries of the wounded rose above the clash of steel. Romanos himself was surrounded, his bodyguard cut down one by one. The emperor fought with the fury of desperation, sword flashing as arrows flew past his helm. But he was taken alive, a prize for Arslan, who saw in this moment the fall of a mighty empire. By sunset, the Byzantine army was shattered, its banners torn, its survivors fleeing in terror. The cost was unimaginable, tens of thousands dead or captured. The flower of Byzantium's nobility lost to Turkish swords. The strength that had held Asia Minor for centuries was broken in a single afternoon. The enemy did not merely win, they unleashed a storm that would sweep across the heartland of the empire. Romanos IV was cast into captivity, forced to kneel before Sultan Arslan. Legend says the Sultan placed his foot upon the emperor's neck, a gesture of utter humiliation. But Arslan, recognizing the gravity of his victory, spared Romanos's life, demanding only tribute and acknowledgement of Seljuk power. The emperor would return to Constantinople, only to be betrayed, blinded, and cast aside by his own people. The wounds of Manzikert would fester, poisoning the empire from within. In the aftermath, the gates of Anatolia swung open to Turkish migration. Towns and cities that had flourished under Byzantine rule were abandoned or conquered. The empire's heartland, the land of wheat and warriors, became the domain of new lords. The shockwaves reached even the distant courts of Europe, where Romanos's desperate plea for help would echo in the ears of popes and princes. Within a generation, the call for holy war, what history would call the First Crusade, would sound across Christendom, summoned by the agony of Manzikert. The defeat at Manzikert was more than a military disaster. It was the breaking point for an empire already weakened by intrigue, arrogance, and neglect. Ancient traditions of discipline and unity collapsed before the onslaught of steppe tactics and political betrayal. The Byzantine army, once the most feared fighting force of the ancient world, was now a shadow of its former self. The borderlands became battlegrounds, and every village echoed the memory of that terrible day. Yet from this crucible of defeat, legends were born. Survivors whispered of terrible courage, the last stand of the Varangian god, Norse warriors who fought to the death beside their emperor, the Armenian archers who unleashed their final volleys before vanishing into the night, the nameless foot soldiers who held the line as their world crumbled. These men became heroes not for their victory, but for their defiance, their willingness to face annihilation rather than surrender. The Battle of Manzikert stands as a warning to all who would trust in numbers alone. It was not the strength of arms that decided the day, but the cunning of commanders, the loyalty of subordinates, and the swift hand of fate. The greatest empire of Christendom lost half its territory in a single afternoon, undone by betrayal, confusion, and the merciless discipline of the Seljuk Turks. While enemies fled in terror, the warriors of Alp Arslan pressed the attack, forging a new destiny for Anatolia. What happened next shocked even hardened veterans. The Byzantine Empire, once the bulwark of civilization, would never recover its eastern provinces. The memory of Manzikert haunted its halls, a ghost that whispered of lost glory and shattered legions. The Seljuks, emboldened, carved out new realms across the land, their standards rising where Byzantine eagles once soared. And so, on the plains of Anatolia, the fate of empires was decided not by gods, but by men, by the courage to endure and the folly to betray. The legacy of Manzikert endures, a blood-soaked chapter in the book of ancient war, where the bravest fought, the mighty fell, and the world was forever changed by the clash of sword and shield. But the story does not end there. In the shadows of defeat, new powers rise, and warriors prepare for the next great struggle. The scars of Manzikert would call forth crusades, rebellions, and the relentless quest for vengeance. Who would step forward to reclaim a lost empire? And what heroes would emerge from the ruins of a shattered world? The answer waits on the next battlefield.